Hello and welcome to this third class on writing stories or narrative writing. Today we are going to try to write an actual story based on a topic, and I'm sure that in doing so we would all learn how to write a story, especially during the examination conditions, keeping the word limit in mind, and how do we approach this task so that all the requirements of of the question which is set up in an examination are met. We're not going to, of course, look at each and every requirement, but then we just hope, and I just hope that in doing so, as we write the story, the major requirements, or at least two of the most important requirements that I've discussed, especially in this video, would be communicated to you, and hopefully you'd be able to benefit from them also. So we would be writing an actual story in this lesson, and let's just get on with the formal lesson. Let's have a look at the topic first of all for narrative writing, and this topic is write a story about a picture that plays an important role in the relationship between two people. So here is the topic, and we're going to develop a story around this topic. Now, the very first thing that I would request all of you to do is to make sure that you understand the topic very well. And whatever you write that answers the question, it is on topic. There is no point writing an answer or a story which does not answer the question. So in other words, if you've written a wonderful story and if you've used all the right ingredients and all the masalas and all the spices in it, but if the story does not answer the question, it would be of no use, and the examiners, of course, would not be impressed. So the most important advice that I can give you is to make sure that you write a story which answers the question, which is on topic. And if you're able to do that, I'm sure you should be able to get good marks in the examination. The second thing that is related to the first requirement is that instead of just simply writing away your answers, I would encourage all of you to just give yourself some time to plan your essay. The planning stage is probably the most important stage in writing an essay. You can take some time which is completely devoted to planning in the examination that you're going to attempt. You're given 45 minutes to answer a composition question. So in my view, if you spend about 10 minutes approximately on making sure that you plan your essay well, I think that would be time well spent. So make sure that you plan your story before you start writing. And during the planning stage, I think it would be useful if you write something from either from your own personal experience, or if you have heard about it, or if you've seen someone else going through it. Because anything that is born out of your personal experience or of what you've seen happening to others is automatically going to be more closer to life, and it's going to have a more lifelike touch to it, and I'm sure that it's going to connect with your readers and with your audience, and I'm sure that they're going to like it also. So with this, I would like to share the outline of this topic with you, but even as I share this outline with you, do not consider that this outline was written in the first attempt. As you think about the story and the topic, and you try to write something, whatever comes to your mind, there are going to be lots of ideas which would not be relevant, and there are going to be ideas which are relevant to the topic. So I would suggest that you write the outline in such a way that you, of course, just stick to the main ideas, just stick to those ideas which answer the question, and ignore or cut out the ideas that are not relevant. So in this particular essay, I'm just going to share the outline which is relevant to the question, and I'm just going to share that with you. Now, the first thing that I would like to share is that a picture, the first point is a picture that was torn in the middle, husband and wife. So the topic is write a story about a picture that plays an important role in the relationship between two people. So the first thing that is coming to my mind is the picture is a picture that was torn or cut from the middle, and it relates to a husband and a wife. The second point is that the wife leaves and the husband works and supports his family. So somehow the story that's developing in my mind is that the wife leaves the family and the husband works and tries to support his family and his kids. Third point is has the picture with the kids and himself, and the left side with the wife is torn away. So the picture that is going to play a central role in this essay. It is a picture which has been torn from one of its side, and the picture only contains the husband and the kids, and the part of the picture that included the wife is missing. The fourth point in the planning stage is that years pass and he becomes, of course, the husband becomes successful, the kids are grown up, and one day he finds his wife at the door of his house. She wishes to live with her family for the rest of her life, and her parents have come with her. So that's the fourth point. I mean, this is just the series of events that are coming to my mind and that I've thought that this is how I want to develop the story. So I'm just writing it in that order. The fifth point is husband takes out the picture that he's kept safe with him over the years and thinks now that his wife wants to come back. He looks at that picture. His kids are were small then. Now they're a lot grown up. Lots of gray hair in his beard. And then he remembers his wife's eyes as she sits there in front of him along with her parents. And then he recalls her voice, and he decides that the words that she spoke did not go well with the sound of her voice, and her eyes didn't go with her words. So this is the next point that I've written in the outline. And the sixth and the last point would be he doesn't know how she has lived for the 4 years of her life, and he looks again at the picture. She has been missing from the picture for 4 years, and he feels that it's better to keep his life the same way as the picture. Kind of a slightly that is kind of a story that is unexpected and an unexpected ending maybe. And let us just see that if we can look at the story itself and see if it is going to be a complete story that is evolved or written on the basis of this outline. Now, it would be useful to remember that as we plan this story, it would be advisable that you keep the structure of the story in your mind, and keeping that structure of that story in mind, we would be I would be telling you that the three parts of the story would be that the first part being that you introduce the settings and the main character. The second point would be that you involve or include the idea that the main character undergoes a challenge, or the main character has to deal with a challenging situation. And last of all, as the main challenge, as that main character deals with that challenge, there are problems or there are issues. And then finally, the main character is able to decide how to deal with that challenge in one way or the other. So we're just going to keep that what we covered in the second lecture, the formal structure of the story in our mind, right? Thinking about the settings, the main characters, the problem or the challenge that the main character has to face, and last of all, how this challenge stays there, and there are ways by the main characters to address the challenge, but it somehow does not work. And then finally, when the challenge is kind of answered, and then how is it that the stories finally move towards its end? So let us just now look at the neat draft of the story and see if we can actually write the story as well. So the story starts like this. Click, and the picture was taken. It showed happy and smiling faces of Ali, his wife Ayman, and their two kids in the middle. Those were the happiest and luckiest of times. Ali and Ayman loved each other, and their life together was like the happiest and the loveliest dream on earth. But then everything changed. There were many reasons for the change, but it finally happened. Ayman decided to part her ways from her own family. She was a working lady, and she thought that a better life awaited her. If she leaves her middle-class family, she had her own dreams and she wanted to achieve success, and she thought that she couldn't do it living with a family and kids to take care of. So one day she took the very same picture and cut it with a pair of scissors and took herself out of that picture. The jagged end of the picture now showed Ali and his two kids only. Ayman was now missing from their lives. Ali was devastated. Luckily, his mother and his younger brother helped him take care of his kids. In the mornings, the kids went to school and Ali went to the workplace. But in the evenings, he tried to spend most of his time with kids. His kids were the only priority in his life. Children missed their mother, but they had their younger cousins to play with, and the elders in the extended family took care of them. Weeks turned into months, and months into years. Many relatives tried to contact Ayman and persuade her to live with her family, but nothing worked. 4 years passed in the blink of an eye. Today, after more than 4 years, all of a sudden, Ayman and her parents were sitting in Ali's house. Ayman wanted to live with her family again. Her parents spoke on her behalf and wanted Ali to allow her back into the family. Ali was quiet. He stole a look at Ayman's face. Her face was expressionless. After some time, Ali excused himself from everyone and came into his bedroom. He took out the torn picture from his wallet. It had a jagged end showing the snips of a scissor, and it showed happy faces of just 3 family members. He closed his eyes. He knew Ayman was the biological mother of her kids, but he also knew that she had left them for a reason that he did not understand. He never wanted a divorce because he had always wanted her kids to be with their mother whenever any opportunity arises. But there was something different about Ayman. Her eyes evaded Ali's as if she was deeply and irrevocably guilty. It wasn't the same Ayman Ali knew. Ali looked again at the picture. He closed his eyes hard again. 2 tears rolled out of his eyes and moved down his cheeks. The picture told her how her family should look like. It was better off with 1 member less so that others should keep smiling. So as we look at the story, it has a kind of a sad end, and this story has been written keeping the plan in the mind, and it's about 500 words. And before we finally end, and I'll give you an exercise for this, I can tell you about one thing, which is on a final note. Like any other skill, narrative writing requires practice, and there are many other tips and tricks you'd learn along the way as you learn how to write stories. But then who knows, one of you becomes so good at it, at writing the stories, that they end up writing a novel or the screenplay of a successful movie or a drama. So one thing that I like you to share one thing that I like you to do is to practice writing stories, and above all, try to write things from your heart. Because I'm sure that if you're writing something from your heart, and if you're truly involved in your story, it's going to be of some interest to the reader, and the readers would be able to connect to it. And as long as you're writing from your heart, you can only do that when you have somehow been a part of that story, and when you have actually been close to that story itself. Now, as you can see that there are some minor differences between the outline and the story that I've written, but that's perfectly okay as long as the main idea in the story is represented in the kind of corresponds with the outline. That should be okay. There will be some minor changes along the way, and then that's okay as long as you come out with a story that answers the question. Now, let me also share that with you that once you've written the story, this is not the first draft. This is the neat draft, but this is not certainly the first draft. There has to be a lot of editing which you have to do. And I have done a lot of editing with this story before, before kind of sharing it with you. So the planning stage and even with the final stage in which you write the neat draft, please make sure that you will have to do a lot of editing, and it never generally it never the whole story never comes out just perfect in the first attempt. So before we end with this class, let me just give you an exercise. I would expect you to write a story, and you can choose any story. I would want you to choose a story of your own liking from the past papers and try that. If any one of you wants to do that, they're most welcome to do it. But if someone, some of you might still expect me to give you the topic, and they would want to write a story on that. So just for those of you who would not want to write a story based on their own choice, I would give a topic and you can write on that. So the topic for today's exercise is that write a story in which a science laboratory plays an important part. Right? I hope that you'd be able to write this story. Please try to write this story in a way that somehow connects with any of the experiences that you have. And if you think that this story or this topic is not something that you find very easy to write about, you can pick or choose any topic from the past papers and write on it. So I think with that, we come to the end of this class, and I hope that you would be able to submit your essays or your composition stories with me before we move on, before we have the next class. Thank you very much for listening to me.